Hi, my name is Kelly Frantz-Langford, and this is my Mod 1 project for EDL 850. These are pictures of my family. My husband and I have 3 kids. Our oldest will be moving into a dorm at KU this weekend, so it's definitely a bittersweet week for us. Our middle guy will be a sophomore in high school, and our youngest will be starting kindergarten. I work for a Tiny K program. Tiny K is the Birth to 3 special education program in the state of Kansas. I'm the assistant director for the program, and TARC Tiny K is the 3rd largest program in the state, and last year we served over 900 children and their families. I'm a Greenbush employee, and TARC is the lead and fiscal agent of the program. So I work for Greenbush and TARC. My professional activities include I am currently the president of the Tiny K Alliance, which is a group of networks that has come together to look at advocacy efforts across the state as it pertains to regulations and funding for our programs. I am also a member of the first Early Childhood Advisory Panel for the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund. So let's talk about the role of government in education. All 3 branches of the federal government play a role in education. In the executive branch, the president appoints the Secretary of Education. So President Trump appointed Secretary DeVos. The president also suggests a budget and signs any legislation into law. The legislative branch determines the legislation, distributes funds and appropriates the funds, and also is required to confirm the appointment of the Secretary of Education. The judicial branch has also played a role as far as education, particularly in looking at the 14th Amendment and its application to education, in that really looking at equal rights for all citizens. And so the federal government's responsibility is to ensure an equal, free, and high-quality education. It also plays a role in gathering research and distributing information on policies and practices that make the most impact for school and providing free and high-quality education. And they also can distribute and do distribute compensatory funds, which help support equal access and opportunities for all students. State governments actually play a very large role in education because when the Constitution was originally written, education was not a part of it, and anything that was not specifically written in as part of the Constitution then became under the jurisdiction of the states. And so the state role in education is significant. Both the governor and the legislators, whom are elected officials, have the ability to pass laws governing different school practices. Oftentimes, states go on to create either a cabinet or a department specific to education. In Kansas, we have the Department of Education, but in Tiny K, so the Birth to 3 special education program, it's actually under the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. So we have 2 different departments that are overseeing educational resources in Kansas. In addition, the judicial branch, depending on what is being discussed in court, those officials could either be elected or appointed. But they may interpret the application of the laws as far as how they apply to the state governances on education. And so the state really creates the standards for student achievement, and those vary by state, but those are outlined at the state level. The state provides approximately 40% of the funding for most local districts, and then the state also determines how local districts will be created, and then decides how much control is given to the local districts to make decisions that govern the everyday or the day-to-day operations of a school. Next, looking at local governments, The first piece to look at with the local government is the local school board. School board members are elected officials, although in some localities they could be appointed members, and it depends on the state and the local ordinances. The school board members then appoint the superintendent, which is a paid position. And again, depending on the regulations of different localities, the school board may work directly with some city council members or other elected local officials to look at things like property taxes and other funding efforts that go into schools. Approximately 50% of any district's budget comes from local resources, and so there can be a wide variability across states. Local school boards have a lot of influence over their curricula. They write the policies and procedures for the district, and they have great influence over the hiring and dismissal of personnel. They probably have the most direct impact on the day-to-day functioning of any school. So let's look at which level of government impacts some of the different components of the NELP standard. And so as far as evaluating, developing, and implementing management, communication, technology, school-level governance, and operation systems to support each student and promote the mission and vision, I would say the greatest influence is at the local level. The local government or the local, each district and school board determines the mission and vision of the school, which directly influences all of those things. They determine district policies and procedures, and they are responsible for over 50% of the budget, which will directly impact several of the components listed in this. For component 6.2, to evaluate, develop, and advocate for data-informed and equitable resourcing plan that supports school improvement and student development, I would say that certainly the state and local governments have a lot of influence, but I thought for this one, the state government probably has the most. First of all, they have the ability to determine how much power the local districts have in implementing some of those things and in providing an equitable education. States have the ability to gather data that can be used to inform those decisions across districts and across the state. And that data is important to inform an equitable resourcing plan. And the other piece of it is that states provide a large portion of district funding, which also very much dictates how and what you can do as far as developing those plans. Component 6.3 is to reflectively evaluate, communicate about, and implement laws, rights, policies, and regulations to promote student and adult success and well-being. This was, again, difficult because I could see how both the state and federal government play a large role in this, but I feel like the federal government probably has the most influence in this particular component because it is responsible for safeguarding the rights guaranteed under the Constitution, looking as far as each student receiving a high-quality education. They provide some funding that helps to promote an equitable education. The Department of Education also serves as a central location for research and practice. And the federal government also has the ability to pass legislation that would impact both the state and local practices. As far as how do the different levels of government impact student success and well-being, I would say that because there are 3 levels of influence and oversight, that it provides a natural system of checks and balances, which is important to the success and well-being of every student. And part of that is because there is accountability across schools, districts across the state, and then across the nation. And we do have, because of the data that's been gathered, markers at both the state and federal level that help to keep schools accountable and really help to identify what is a successful school and which schools are failing and need more support. In addition, the importance of all three shows in the area of funding, and funding directly impacts a school's ability to provide that high quality education. So the federal money is important because it is designed to help support an equitable student education, as far as helping to support communities or states with low income areas, help to support students with disabilities, and help to support states, the states in providing that education equitably. State funding is very important. It's a big piece of the budget, and it can be very significant to some districts because depending on the local government in the district and local funds, the wealth and the resources of the district can vary greatly across the state. And so the ability to have funding split between all three levels of government helps to create a, I will say, more equitable process. I think we still have a long way to go, but all three of those streams together is what makes the funding possible for a student. These are my references, and I appreciate you listening to my presentation. Thanks so much, and have a great week.